Hello and welcome back to the Brit Iron podcast. Today is episode 12 of our season preview and individual team rankings, and today is the number 21 team, the Chicago Bears. Now I know there's a lot of talking points for this team, so we'll move swiftly on. Of course today, joined by Matt and Sam. However, I want to move quickly into this one because there's a lot to mention, as I just said. I'll kick you off with a good point. Do they have a legit NFL starting quarterback? Because I can't see one.
Oh, Perryman 2.0.
Oh, shoot me if you have to. But if you can tell me his name, I'm all ears.
Damn, that. Oh. That's a hot take to touch straight after that, but I think I'll jump in with it.
That's a little bit harsh, but
I'll jump in. I think the competition for both, could help to escalate them. I think Foles last year, he didn't seem to react that well with it, but I think there was a lot more pressure in terms of the contract. Here it's restructured, it's a bit less of a big money deal, so it's not quite the price tag and the performance expectation that comes with it. And I think Trubisky, for me, he hasn't really shown it yet. He hasn't, and he's had a few years now. He's had his 5th year option declined. This is his 4th year. If he's going to prove that he can be an NFL starter, this is it. And arguably, Foles, on his day, is an NFL starter, I think, when he plays well. But it's just the consistency hasn't really been there. He seems to only come and have done well when those 2 games at the end of the year with the Eagles. When he pops in, wins some Super Bowl, does decent for him in the playoffs. Outside of that, I think he really needs to get a bit more consistency. So I think maybe it's a bit harsh to say there's not an NFL starting quarterback here. But I can see why you would say it. I can see the thought process behind it. But
I just wouldn't be surprised if they were to draft a quarterback next year or the year after. I think that's
where
definitely. I'm getting my opinion from. I just don't see them wanting to stick with either of those 2 names that you mentioned there.
They could be in a really tricky position just because they've got a really good squad. They've got a great defense with some generational talent on it. They've got nice weapons at wide receiver, running back. I really like David Montgomery at running back. I think he's a great player. I think Allen Robinson is a legitimate NFL number 1 player. There's arguments to say that his career is kind of being wasted in Chicago at the moment, but they've got plenty of pieces, and there are teams that have gone on to win championships or get very close to winning championships with a hell of a lot less around their quarterback. So for me, the big issue is the quarterback room, and do they have someone who can take them to the postseason and to a championship? And Nick Foles, for me, I can kind of understand why they sign him, to light a fire under Mitch Trubisky's arse and kind of be like, look, if you don't start playing a lot better, you're going to be pulled, and we've got a Super Bowl MVP sat behind you.
Yeah.
But realistically, Nick Foles is 31. As you said, Matt, he's had a stretch of 5 or 6 games with the Eagles where he played really, really well. He had 1 season with the Eagles where he played really, really well back in the early 2000s. And other than that, he is just a journeyman quarterback. It wouldn't be surprising if in 7 years you come back and he's been on 5 more teams, kind of like Fitzmagic or something like that. Only difference is he was in the right place at the right time with the right team around him, and he had a great stretch of 5 games where everything came together and it was the perfect storm. If I was a GM, realistically, looking at a Foles Trubisky, I would take Trubisky over Foles. I think, if nothing else, Trubisky's younger and more athletic. Whether Mitch Trubisky's a starting quarterback in the league, I think maybe not. I mean, we've seen 3 years from him now. Yeah. He had 1 year where they went 12-4, and then they were a botched field goal away from making it to the divisional. Did they go out in the divisional round, or was it the?
Can't remember off the top of my head which one that was.
Well, they were a botched field goal away from a playoff win, which would have been a strike. One of the things that Trubisky wants to tick off, playoff win, but I just don't know if he's got it in the clutch moments. When you that kind of thing you want to see from your quarterback who delivers when when you're on 3rd and long in a big game? Do you have the faith that he's going to throw the ball and deliver it downfield? And I just don't have that faith with Trubisky. He consistently hangs on to his first read. He hasn't necessarily shown that he can make reads when dropping back in the proper way. He consistently focuses in on one guy and tries to force passes, which leads to either incompletions or silly interceptions. And 3 years into the league, you're starting to think maybe they whiffed on this one.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think in this offense and with, as you mentioned, the defense they've got there, that it is I would say almost, it's almost a championship winning defense. Like, I'm not saying it can carry the offense off its back, but I mean, if you put that defense with just an efficient offense that doesn't turn a ball over and can score you 20 to 30 points a game, you're going to be looking at a good team. So I think the biggest thing between Trubisky and Foles that I think is going to win the job is who's keeping them the ball, who's got the least turnovers. And I think that's where the one problem is going to come for Trubisky, because I remember there's been games, he has had games where he's played very well. There was a game a few years ago, he tore the Bucs apart. But I think he's a very confidence-heavy player. If he comes out, and maybe this is just against weaker defenses, but he's connecting with, maybe some of Sam said, his first read, but he's on a page with them, he maybe gets a touchdown or two without too many incompletions or a pick, and starts to feel good. I think those are the games where he plays better. If he comes out, gets caught by a good defense and throws a pick, he just seems to kind of disappear into the game. So I think if he can get on a run, maybe there's something there, but I think the biggest thing for this quarterback room, I think it's just whoever throws the least picks is probably going to be the guy, because they've got, as you said, David Montgomery there, who I think is going to become a running back you can lean on. And if you have to, you just run this as a team that is a running team with a good defense. And when you need to, on your 3rd and longs, you put the guy in there who's got the best connection with the receivers and is less likely to throw a stupid pick, but can make you those yards.
That's the thing. I like Trubisky over Foles in that situation. I know we've seen it from Foles on the biggest stage, and he's done that. But from a GM's perspective, I'd rather go with the younger guy who I think has the potential. Like, if he's showing it in practice and everything, then I think this is still Trubisky's job to lose, and I would still be putting Trubisky in. The issue I have with Trubisky is I just don't know if in those big clutch moments, I think he could almost turn into that, maybe not as good, but like a budget version of Kirk Cousins.
Okay.
Is he going to show up? Or is he going to show up in the prime time, like when you're 2 minute drill on Thanksgiving, when you're down to Dallas and you're in AT&T World, you're at Jerry World? Has he got it in him to drive the ball downfield? And I don't think he's accurate enough on his deep balls. I don't think he's gunslingery enough. I think he's too conservative. And like I said earlier, I hate the way he sticks to his reads. Like, he will pick out. You can. If you go back and watch film, you can literally see him. He will eye up the guy that he's wanting right at the start of the play. And even if that guy's covered, he doesn't go to his 2nd, 3rd, 4th reads properly. He'll either just try and shove the pass in, or he panics and rolls out of the pocket.
Yeah. I think, kind of going back to as well what James said about them drafting a quarterback, I think they are actually in an okay spot for doing that, because they've got Mitch Trubisky. They've declined the 5th-year option, so they can just walk away from him at the end of this if he doesn't show enough this year, which is why I think he will, unless in training camp Foles is looking electric, be the guy that starts, and they will give Trubisky games, and then they can make that decision. And if they decide to go away from him, they've got Foles there who, if they need to, they can put out there, even if it's for, let's say, the first half of next season or something, with a rookie underneath him, in where there is going to be options. Some decent options for a rookie quarterback in this upcoming draft. So I think, if Trubisky doesn't play well, for the Bears, they're in an okay spot to just move on. So I think long term, this isn't a big long-term issue. I think they've got ways in and out of it, and especially having restructured Foles' deal, they're not on the hook that if they do get a good guy, they can't then end up paying him, or they can't pay other pieces.
It will be massive. It will be massive for that coaching staff, though, if they do decide to go away from Trubisky 3 or 4 years after trading heavily up and taking him over two of the best young quarterbacks in the league at the moment in Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes, to then do that again, because they will probably have to, if there's a guy in this draft coming up, one of these top 2 or 3 quarterbacks, I think with this defense, they could easily, even with Trubisky playing badly, or Foles playing badly, they could easily go and win 8 or 9 games.
Yeah, that's the thing. This defense. I would
say as a flaw, they're probably still a 6-win team because the defense is that good, and they've got all the other pieces. At which point, if you're sat at 13, 14, or let's say everything goes planned, you're sat at 12, and there are 3 guys that are legitimate NFL starters that you think coming out of that draft, what are the chances that one of those guys, or even the guy that you want, is there at 12? You've probably got to trade up.
Again, yeah.
At which point, if you trade up and you whiff on that guy, that's nagging.
Jobs are being lost at that point. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, but if you've got to do it, you've got to do it. I don't think you can be too emotional about the past so much.
I think
I'm sure you could say 30 years ago they did the same thing.
I think but there's 30 years ago, and then there's 3 years ago when you traded a king's ransom to move up one spot with a team that wasn't going to take a quarterback to take a guy who's turned out to be less than average, and the 2 guys that went after him that were on the board. I mean, one of them's an NFL MVP and a Super Bowl MVP, and the other one has made a Pro Bowl in every year that he's played 16 games.
Yeah, what I mean is you just can't get too caught up on the past, and you can do it once and fail, you can do it again, and it's not necessarily going to fail every time. So I think you can't be too emotionally invested in what's happened previously. So I know there you mentioned that their floor would be 6 wins. This is quite interesting because in our rankings I had them at 5 and 11. So I'd just like to quickly read through the schedule and where I think they can pick up wins and get maybe your guys' opinions on where maybe they could get an extra win above where I think. So I've got them at winning week 1 and 2, Lions first and the Giants. And then, to be honest with you, the next few wins is coming after their bye week against the Lions again, and then another win against the Jags. Outside of that, and maybe an extra one, perhaps against the Rams, I can't really see any other wins. So I'd like to sort of get your guys' takes on where you see those wins coming, because I know you are a bit higher on the Bears than I am.
Yeah, so I think I've got them coin flipping with Detroit. I've got them losing the week 1 game while they're still kind of figuring out the quarterback situation, just a little bit of uncertainty. I've got them then getting wins against Giants and the Falcons. Then not winning again until, we should mention the Rams then, but the Rams in week 7.
Yep.
So I got them before their bye on the first half of this season, actually down below 500, negative team, but then coming off of it after the bye, and getting a win over the Lions, getting a win over the Texans at home, beating the Jags away, and beating the Packers at home, and then also the Vikings before the bye in week 10. So I got them around that bye in the back end of the season. Once one of these guys wins out the job, develops some chemistry, really kind of gets maybe a bit of something rolling with the offense, at least to make it a sustainable offense, something that you can actually win games with on the back of the defense, that they get better as the season goes on and put a little bit of a run together.
Yeah. I think even before the bye, though, they've got some winnable games. You've already mentioned Detroit. That's probably a win there.
Yep.
Giants, pains me to say it as a Giants fan.
It's hard for you to say.
The Giants will walk it, but probably a win.
Danny Jones.
I think the Atlanta game is a winnable game. That Atlanta defense, from everything we've seen last couple of years, they've been leaky. That is a winnable game. I can't see them beating the Colts. Matt's not going to like me, but I think the Tampa Bay game is a winnable game. I think Tampa's going to hit a stride towards the end of the season. But, I mean, you've seen it even in New England over the years. The first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season, Brady takes a while and he works on things, and he'll hit his stride in November, December, January when it matters. Getting that Tampa right at the start of October, that could be a winnable game, especially at home, and you rely on your defense and your run game. Again, Carolina, similar. Maybe don't give them the win there, but it's winnable. The Rams game, winnable. New Orleans Saints, I would probably chalk that up as an L, and the same with the Titans. But the Vikings, again, now the thing that makes me say that about the Vikings is it's a Monday night game.
Kirk Cousins on a Monday.
So that's Kirk Cousins in prime time in Chicago. Kirk doesn't do well there, that is a winnable game. I think both games against Green Bay are winnable games. Same against Houston. You've got Detroit again. So whilst I say they're a 6-win floor, and I think I started them out at 6 wins, a lot of their games are going to be winnable games.
Yeah.
They're games that could be one score. And if you've got if we took a top tier quarterback and you were slotting in, suddenly Deshaun Watson is the quarterback for the Chicago Bears. Suddenly you're saying that's a 10-6, 11-5 team.
Yeah.
So I would not be completely shocked if a lot of those games that I'm saying are winnable swing by a couple points to the Bears, and they're in January.
Yeah, I mean, from what it sounds like, listening to you both there, it seems like a lot of coin flip games or winnable games, like you say, where perhaps you guys have been a bit more favourable to the Bears and I've favoured the opposition a bit more. Yeah. But it's definitely interesting to see how we will take it. But moving on to sort of more the fantasy side of things, there's one position we haven't really mentioned, and that is tight end. Is there any tight ends for the Bears that you guys would be looking for in fantasy? Perhaps stream or perhaps later end of the draft.
Give me 5 minutes quickly to look up all the names because there's a stacked room. There's so many different variables in that tight end room to try and predict this early on. It's for me, it's something I'm avoiding personally. I think I'm not looking towards the Bears for anything at tight end. Like there's value in the Bears, but that's just not where it is for me.
Yeah, I'm so out. I don't even want to take a gamble on any of these guys because there's like you said, there's so many of them. But you've got they've got a couple of guys here that they've got relatively high draft capital on, and are relatively good tight ends, or they're spending a lot of money. I don't even know. I mean, there's I'm looking at their current roster here, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tight ends there. I couldn't even have a guess at who's going to make the final 53, let alone who's then going to be productive. I mean, the only one that I would say has to make that 53 is Jimmy Graham, because they're paying him a silly amount of money to be old and unproductive.
And arguably Cole Kmet as well, just to add him in there.
Yeah, because they took him in the second round. But I mean, even
pick.
Adam Shaheen, he's got high draft capital invested in him from a couple years back, so he would be the kind of guy that they're probably trying to push onto the roster.
Yeah.
No, there's no one there that makes me think, oh yes, I want them on my roster. It's more the kind of thing that if someone pops up and establishes themselves, I'd consider picking them up. But even then, I don't want a tight end on a team that I don't think is going to be a great offense when there's about 9 million other tight ends in the same room competing with them. I won't go near it.
I think the one bit I would add is in Dynasty. Maybe obviously the Bears, they've seen something they like in Cole Kmet to go take him early enough. With, as you said, they've got draft capital and other guys. They've got Jimmy Graham that they're paying. So I think potentially in a Dynasty League later on in it, picking up Cole Kmet as just if you've got a deep bench and you've got room to hold players and see how they develop for a year or two, there's no reason not to. If he's there at a sort of round you're happy to late on in a Dynasty draft, go ahead by all means. I think he's someone that in a few years, if he emerges, if he slots into an offense and they get some kind of consistency at quarterback, you could look back on and be like, good little pick I made there at the back end of a Dynasty draft. But yeah, for just a redraft one-season league, steer clear. Steer clear of this. If someone does emerge, they'll be on the waiver wire, I'd imagine. I can't see anyone drafting a Bears tight end.
Yes, there's not that much excitement looking at it there. But perhaps we could talk about some more exciting players. And Allen Robinson's a name that we mentioned earlier. And when it comes to drafting him, how high are we going? And how much does that QB room really affect this season where you're picking him?
I think it's a difficult one for me because I think you do sometimes get it with where you've got this inconsistency at quarterback. They're both going to have less time to develop chemistry, but with him being, say, the wide receiver one in that offense and without a credible sort of receiving threat for the tight end position that's going to be consistent as well, we said there's a lot of guys there. I could really see if there's a guy in the team that either quarterback's going to get on a page with and get kind of chemistry with, it'd be Allen Robinson. So I think for me, third, fourth, if it's if it's a wide receiver heavy draft, maybe the fifth if people are really going heavy on the running backs.
Yeah.
I think it really depends on sort of the kind of people you got in your draft with you. But I think, if he's there anywhere between around 4 or 5, I'd be happy. I'd take him there. Maybe if there's a lot of wide receivers going early, even towards the back end of the third, if there's a lot that have gone early, if it's PPR and everyone's going for some early receivers, I'd be happy taking him. I'm not too concerned about the inconsistency at quarterback with him personally.
It very much depends on where he would be slotting into your team. I would be happy to take him as my wide receiver 2. If I've already got my marquee wide receiver 1, a Julio or a D-Hop or a Michael Thomas, and I'm looking for a wide receiver 2, I am more than happy, and I'm probably very happy to slot him in as my wide receiver 2. If I need a wide receiver 1, the guy who I can play every single week and not be pulling my hair out with anxiety over, is he going to lay an egg this week, then I'm not going near Robinson. And that's not because I don't like Robinson. I think he's a very talented player. And on a lot of other teams, I think he'd probably be in that kind of locked in, just play him and you're fine category. For me, I just don't have the faith in the offense as a whole. So I'm not going to... I would, in very few drafts, unless he falls, I probably wouldn't be willing to invest the capital that would be required to pick him up, because people will be drafting him as a wide receiver 1, low-end wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
Personally, I'd be happy with him if I've got a marquee guy, but if I'm in a position where I'm in the 3rd or 4th round and I haven't got a receiver yet, he wouldn't necessarily... I'd then go, rather than go for someone who's like a wide receiver, I'd just go for a shed ton of streamable, like, upside guys who could have a massive week, because I can't see Robinson having any massive weeks this year. I just don't think the quarterback play will be there.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think he's very much opinion based. I think anyone you speak to is going to have a sort of a slight different take on him, and for that, I think it's a sort of risk and reward scenario. Because you've got it potentially, if one of these quarterbacks nails down the job early, if Trubisky comes out and sort of has been given that kick up the RCDs and he just starts to actually show that, he puts some of that draft capital that was put into him, starts to show he's worth it a little bit, suddenly you've got potentially a guy you do just put in and start. But it's risky. You could get burnt on him, or you could find value on him. It's really difficult. I think it just depends on sort of the way you like to build your roster. But I think another guy that for me, and I think this is starting to be a bit of a consensus, but Montgomery for this year.
I hope so.
I think he could,
I plowed so much into trading for him in Dynasty last year that if he doesn't come good, I've ruined my Dynasty team for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I think he will. I think especially in this team, I sort of alluded to it earlier, being a team with a good defense and the inconsistency at quarterback where they're going to have to be shuffling things around. I think you might just get times where the play caller is just... It's just like, right, let's just give it to him, feed it through him, and we need to just give our quarterback a bit of time to settle down and not necessarily be feeded so they have to do tons and tons of pass a game and get it to Montgomery.
The one thing I don't like about this team is, like, Tariq Cohen, for me, feels, in fantasy anyway, as a Montgomery owner, you very much feel like Tariq Cohen is just that thorn in your side, because... He's every single week he will steal 6 or 7 carries away, and he is the receiving guy there.
Yeah.
So, not that Montgomery can't catch out the backfield, it's just Cohen's better. So you're not going to be necessarily expecting high receiving targets, which could really devalue Montgomery as a whole. So I would be looking for Montgomery to be a low potential to scrape into running back 1, but probably a running back 2.
Yeah, high end running back 2.
High end running back 2. Yeah. Hopefully, Tariq Cohen doesn't eat into those carries too much.
I think for me, touching on Cohen actually is someone that I've actually keeping a little bit of a track of in my mock drafts, and I think if you're a little bit needy at running back, if you've sort of been going, maybe you're towards the end of the draft order in like a 12-team league, and you've sort of been going more towards the wide receiver early, or you've gone early on one of the big quarterbacks or tight ends, and you sort of start to think, oh, there's a little bit of a hole there. I might need sort of some kind of a flex kind of fill-in guy at running back. Around the 9th, I think Tariq Cohen, 8th, 9th round, you could get value from him, and it's another one where just the inconsistent quarterback play could play into that quite well.
Yeah.
Where sometimes if they're not on a page with the receiver, they look, the reads aren't there, but Cohen's 5 yards to my right, dump it off to him, and see if you can get you some yards. I think especially if you're in a half PPR or PPR league, there could be some value there for me. I'm quietly a little bit not ridiculously high, but I think Cohen could have some good flex value this year.
Yeah.
And just quickly, the last thing we probably want to say on fantasy is probably pretty obvious from everything else we've seen, but this is going to be one of the better defenses and special teams units in the league. If you are running a league that has a defense, special teams, and you can get hold of the Bears, probably a safe option.
Yeah, definitely, I think. And especially if you're the kind of person that likes to kind of take your defenses a bit earlier, this is probably going to be one of those ones that's up near the top of your list where you're looking to take them. But yeah, I think
they'll also have some special teams value with Tariq Cohen and Cordero Patterson on their roster. They've got two very, very good returners there as well.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it sounds like there's a few options there for fantasy. But just to wrap things up, as I know we've run out of time, unfortunately. I'd just like to remind you guys to check out our YouTube account. Go like, comment, and subscribe. Also head over to our Instagram. We're at the Brit Iron, and check out us on Twitter as well under the same handle. We're also setting up a listener league. We've put up a couple of posts on both Instagram and Twitter about that. So check those posts out for the details. Like to get you guys involved and get you entered into the draw, which will be happening in late July. But unless you guys have got any more points, I think that is all we've got time for today. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.